harness that strength. I told you I wanted to spread the excellence I see in our schools. I said it then, and I'll say it again now. I want to see every child achieving and thriving. Now, that's already true in some schools, and it's true for some children. But it's not true in all schools, and it's not true for all children. For too long, under the last government, the underachievement of so many children has been obscured by the successes of just one group of children. The success of the system cannot and will not be measured in those terms any longer. The health of our communities, of our wider society, demands so and cities and communities, recognising that achieving and thriving are not opposites but partners, not a trade-off but a pairing. The final step brings the results we want to see: engagement. Parents at the centre of school life. Children attending every day, behaving well, believing that they belong in school and that success belongs to them. Colleagues, that's what the white paper will guide us towards. Children, from forgotten to included, their learning, their schools, from narrow to broad. The result, from withdrawn to engaged. To restore opportunity to communities across our country. That is my moral mission. A school system that values richness just as much as it values rigour. A system that values partnership just as it values excellence. That builds communities just as it shapes individuals. That provides stretch just as it provides reward. Where children leave not only with a world of opportunity ahead, but with experiences that will last a lifetime behind them. And a generation of young people, the engineers, the artists, the doctors of tomorrow, the parents, carers and teachers of tomorrow. Each defined not simply by their learning, but by their wider experience. People, not just pupils, the proud result of our school system. Colleagues, because I know of your passion and your expertise, I know it's possible, I've seen it. And our school system works for many children. But we need change because it doesn't work for all children. It doesn't work for the 4 and 5 children with SEND who don't achieve a strong pass in their English and Maths GCSEs. It doesn't work for the bright children who aren't yet being fully stretched to reach for the stars. It doesn't work for the children who still grow up at the sharp end of the disadvantage gap. And it doesn't work for the 4 and 5 white children on free school meals who don't achieve a strong pass in their English and Maths GCSEs. And the latest data out today shows that the dial isn't shifting. And you'll know better than me, this is not the ceiling for what those children can achieve. But too many are adrift, disconnected from success, disengaged from school. So let me ask you a question. How many young people in England today truly feel that they are a part of something? Something that looks out for them, to which they can contribute, to which they can belong. Something to which they want to come back to day in and day out, because it is exciting to feel a part of something. And I fear that not enough of our young people feel that way about school. Instead of their ambition to do their best, just the suspicion somehow that school isn't for them. They feel forgotten. And you'll know who I mean. The boy who skulks through your corridors when he turns up for school at all. You'll recognise the slouching sense of dejection. He sees the path to a good life narrowing by the day. He doubts that his school can provide a way up because it was the same for his parents. Generation after generation, growing up away from the light of a great education. And now that boy spending night after night alone in his bedroom, vulnerable to the darker forces that seek him out online and whisper poison in his ear, turning him away from the free and fair society we seek to build. Video by video, reel by reel, meme by meme. Colleagues, this is how the fabric of our communities begins to rip, bit by bit. Because when that young person is offered not opportunity but excuses, he feels not supported but betrayed, he turns not to aspiration but to anger. So ask me what I stand for as Secretary of State, and I'll tell you. It's not what, it's who. I stand for that boy, for his sisters, for his cousins, for his community. I stand for the children with special educational needs, whose needs are not being met as they should. And I stand for every child held back in our country because of their background. The decisions I make for them, the actions I take for them, everything I do is for them. Because another path is possible for them, for our communities, for our country. So let's broaden our horizons. Schools are here to teach maths and English and music and geography and so much more. But not only that, and it's in our best schools, it's never only been that. The best schools prepare children not just for work but for life, not just achieving but thriving too. The best schools understand their role in shaping not just the workers of tomorrow but the citizens of tomorrow, the society of tomorrow. These are mutual reinforcing goals. The sports teams, the debate clubs, the visits to the museum, the trip to the theatre. They don't take away from academic achievement, they add to it. But they have been optional extras for too long. Nice to haves for those lucky enough to get them. Now they must become a fundamental part of the education of every child. So our children's school experience must be broad in who we see in our classrooms too, who is supported to achieve and thrive there, broad on inclusion. Because every child deserves the opportunity to go to their local school, and that includes children with special educational needs and disabilities. We know that outcomes for children with SEND have stagnated. They're more likely to be suspended, and when they leave school, they're more likely to end up out of employment, education or training. It is a scandal and is a stain on our society, and we must put this right once and for all. I've been listening to parents, children, teachers, leaders and experts. And it's clear we need to keep listening and building a consensus to map out the future for how the whole system delivers for children with SEND, where every child's needs are identified early, where support is provided as standard without the need for parents to fight tooth and nail. But I know how hard parents, having fought for that support, will feel anxious about the change ahead. So I do want to reassure them. We will work with parents as partners to get this change right. I know you're all keen to hear more, and soon we'll set out our plans. But that doesn't mean we can't make improvements for children as we go. We have, we are, and we will. Like investing £740 million to create 10,000 more places for children with SEND in mainstream and specialist schools. The right support for parents in our Best Start family hubs. And boosting SEND content for initial teacher training and throughout career progression. We've got to turn it around, not just for the sake of children with SEND, but for all of our children, to show them a model of society that is broad and inclusive, every child achieving and thriving. That's my challenge to you as leaders in your schools and in your trusts, because the improvements we need in classrooms in Cornwall or schools in Sheffield, we cannot impose them from Whitehall. It's my job, it's the government's job to set the standards, to hold you to account, of course that's right. But it's also our job to support you and to celebrate the best in your schools and trusts. That's why we're using our RISE programme to spread excellence. For schools that need extra support, we'll pair them with excellent schools with advice from the best of the best. And one of the best at delivering for disadvantaged children is Tanfield School, near me in the North East. I spoke about Tanfield in a speech I gave earlier this year, about all of the brilliant work they're doing to break the link between background and success. And now through our RISE teams, we're spreading that excellence. They've partnered with Duke Secondary School in Northumberland. Duke serves similar communities and they're on a similar journey to Tanfield. They're part of a trust, but with other primaries, not secondaries. So they hadn't been able to reap all of the benefits of shared best practice. But now they're partnered with Tanfield, they can draw on new ideas and expertise. Subject leaders at Dukes can share curriculum plans with Tanfield staff and vice versa, creating a network of good ideas they can bring into the classroom to raise standards and improve outcomes for pupils. I want to unlock that relentless drive for better in our schools. But not just relentless, smarter and better targeted too. Because the new Ofsted framework will shine a light on excellence and pinpoint what needs to change. Together we'll end what doesn't work by spreading what does. And colleagues, the best examples of driving up standards through collaboration are in this hall today. That's why collaboration will be at the heart of everything that we do. Putting the power of high-quality trusts in the service of disadvantaged children. To provide for children an education packed with opportunity, rooted in strong relationships, based on the best evidence and filled with purpose and belonging. A curriculum that is ambitious for every child. And that's why I asked Professor Becky Francis to review the national curriculum, to make it fit for the future. And I'm confident that the recommendations are going to help us deliver a curriculum and education that is rich and broad. That's what every child needs to achieve and thrive. That's how we take children from forgotten to included, how we expand their learning from narrow to broad, and how we make sure they're no longer withdrawn but now engaged, how we get them learning, achieving, how we raise their attainment. And to those who say that it's not possible for some children, I say rubbish. It is possible, and it is already happening. Like at 5 Acres School in the Forest of Dean, between a quarter and a third of their Year 11 cohort comes from disadvantaged white backgrounds in any given year. But at 5 Acres, the progress these children make is strong. Simon the head gets it. He grew up in that community. He was a student at the school himself. And now, together with colleagues at Greenshaw Learning Trust, he has returned to drive improvement for children just like him. Like Jack, who arrived at 5 Acres at 11 years old, not really sure if this was the place for him. But a mix of academic challenge and deep engagement worked wonders. He thrived at the school and grew up to become head boy. He aced his exams. He now runs his own successful business. Jack is proof that education can be transformative for children like him. And the school has a relentless focus on engaging children in learning and engaging parents too. They run school in action tours where they invite parents during the school day. Come and see what's going on, they say to parents. Come and see what your child is getting up to at school. Come and see what education can do for them. And there's a bacon butty and a coffee in it if you want that too. In every school, we need to go from withdrawn to engaged. And the markers are clear. Attendance is one. Thanks to the hard work we've done together, thanks to all of your hard work, we've turned a corner in our fight to get children back in the classroom. Last year, children spent 5 million more days in school, but there is still so much more to do. On behaviour too, another marker of engagement. Far too much time is lost on poor behaviour. 7 minutes for every 30 in the classroom. And that's time children can't afford, and suspensions have tripled. We've got to turn it around. So through the white paper, we'll focus on setting early expectations on behaviour. Children calm and focused, from withdrawn to engaged. And there is one barrier in particular I worry is locking out young people. Because before a child can even begin to engage in everything that their school has to offer, they must first be able to read. When they can't, that sense of dejection sets in, engagement seeps away, and attendance follows. You know the rest. Reading holds the key to so much. There is no foundation more important. Reading was the greatest gift my granddad ever gave to me. He understood how far it could take me, not just in my exams, but right throughout my life. So he made sure I was never without a book. Every child deserves that precious gift. They're linked to the wonders of the world in the classroom and beyond. Reading is the passport to the rest of their lives as engaged and active citizens. So I'm deeply troubled that around 1 in every 4 children leaves primary school not able to properly read. And for disadvantaged children it's worse, it's 1 in 3. And I'm sorry to say the huge majority of these children go on not to secure what they need in their English GCSE 5 summers later. Between those staging posts, at the end of Year 6 and Year 11 there is a gap where drift can set in, a gap that we must now fill with support and stretch, and with a proper check on progress, on engagement. So we will introduce a statutory assessment in Year 8 to assess reading fluency and comprehension. We'll test progress at this key point, when too many children either spin their wheels or slip further behind. Not to put teachers under the microscope, but to support them. Invaluable data for schools to make sure that the child that needs more help, the helping hand, doesn't slip through the cracks. And we know the strongest foundations are built early. And that is why we'll introduce a new ambitious target for 90% of children to reach the expected standard in phonics by the end of Year 1. Together with our National Year of Reading, launching in just a few months' time, hand in hand with the National Literacy Trust. And I pledge for a library in every primary school that the Chancellor announced at our conference. We are putting reading front and centre of the change that we want to bring. And colleagues, let us never forget that progress is always possible. Maisie arrived at 5 acres unable to read. And up until that point, everything about learning had been just so much harder. But thanks to an intensive phonics programme and her dedicated teachers, she turned it around. She left school having passed her English and maths, and she's now gone on to further study. These are the stories that keep me going when times get tough. That push for better, from forgotten to included, from narrow to broad, from withdrawn to engaged. For too many children struggling with reading and maths, to every child building strong foundations for learning. From behaviour eating up precious time, to every child calm, settled and ready to learn. From an absence epidemic to every child attending regularly. From enrichment as the preserve of a lucky few to every child enjoying sport, arts, culture, nature and adventure. Every child engaged, every child achieving and thriving. Schools return to pride of place in our country, anchors in our communities. And colleagues, don't you ever doubt the power of that, because Leora, you are right to call this a pivotal moment. The Prime Minister said it a few weeks ago. We have a choice as a country. Hope or grievance, renewal or decline, the fight for the soul of our nation. It isn't just about politics, it's about all of us here in this room, setting our young people off on the right path in life. Because if we want them to choose hope, first, they need to find opportunity, not just for some of them, but for all of them. That is our task. That is our responsibility. That is why the path to national renewal runs through your schools. So the excellence I talked about before, that force for good, it is up to us all to take that and to spread it. To reject the falsehood that education just can't reach some children. To continue our journey of improvement as educators. To engage this country's next generation and deliver national renewal. So colleagues, now is the time to look to the future. To lead our school system into the next decade. In service of a generation of children who will lead our country into the next century. Because those of you who've been teaching long enough will know, when you bump into an ex-pupil out in the world, you understand that the little boys and girls in your classrooms today are the inventors, artists, creators, engineers, scientists, partners and parents of tomorrow. So our task is not just to prepare them for the world of work, it's to shape the engaged and thoughtful citizens our country will need as we head towards the 22nd century. The Jacks and the Maisies. That's not just our task, it is our responsibility. A responsibility that spreads beyond those of us in this room. We need parents, schools, government, communities to work together as one. Because the challenges we face demand nothing less than the creation of our common future. The white paper will be our guide, but it's up to all of us to answer the call. Thank you very much.
Secretary of State, thank you so much for that, and thank you for being with us today. I know you've had a busy few weeks. I wanted to pose some questions to you that come from the annual survey that we do of our members with our partner Adiro. So around 400 accounting officers, chief executive officers, responded to the survey this year. And what they told us is that ensuring inclusive education is the top priority for more than 3/4 of trusts. So the trust sector is ready for the change that you want to bring about in SEND. So I wonder, what is your message to the trust sector about our role in designing inclusive schooling?
A big question and a big challenge, but also I think a profound opportunity to deliver better outcomes for children with SEND. And I've been really grateful to you, Leora, and to CST for all of the work that you've been doing together with us to make sure that we are shaping a better school system for children with SEND, that we do deliver a more inclusive mainstream approach for our children, but also we recognise the important role of the specialist sector as a part of that, and also creating more specialist provision in mainstream schools. I've seen some phenomenal examples across the country, including in many trusts, and there is so much good practice that's out there, especially where it comes to engaging parents. And my message in terms of what we will need to take forward around SEND reform is that this is a complex and sensitive area, one where I take my responsibilities no more seriously, given we are talking about often very vulnerable children, parents who've been through an adversarial system, and when we talk of change, even when necessary, the worry about what change will mean. But my ask to you is to work with us to convey that message to parents, to deliver a better education for children with SEND, but also to make the case for why reform is not just necessary, but it's essential. Because if we want to build a society where every child can achieve and thrive, then that has to extend to children with SEND. We are taking the time that we need to listen to parents, to the sector, to experts, including in areas like health. But this is the job of all of us to make sure that outcomes for children are better. So I really would invite everyone to work with us on this, but also to share what is working well. I've seen it myself on lots and lots of school visits, some fantastic examples that we need to spread further, and I appreciate alongside this that we will need to do more to support all of you, particularly around training and development for staff, which I know is a critical area.
So we're looking forward to hearing from Tom later today about the work of the expert group and anticipating the white paper, which is very exciting. So thank you for that answer. Slightly more difficult one. Trust leaders are slightly more confident about the financial sustainability of trusts than in last year's survey, but balancing budgets remains a top priority. And over half of trusts who responded to the survey told us that they are either considering or actively pursuing cuts to classroom staff. So it's a serious position. And I know you can't say anything about what will be in the autumn budget, but things are very tight at the moment, I would say. What would you say to reassure us on this point?
Things are tight across the board. I mean, we inherited a big challenge where it came to the public finances. But I would say, despite that, the Chancellor at the spending review did prioritise investment in education. We do have more going in. And I would also just say that alongside the measures directly to put more funding into schools, the action we're taking around child poverty, for example, will make a big difference to what you are able to deliver in school. The huge expansion in free school meals that will roll out from next year is an extra £1 billion that will go in to support families. And I know that you spoke about child poverty in your speech, and it's a big concern of many people that I speak to when I'm out around the country. But I do recognise the challenges that people are facing. It's why we've been leading work that will be, and where we'll be setting out more around how we can support the sector to make savings in non-staffing areas. So the work we've been doing around procurement, around energy costs, we want to go further in supporting schools and trusts to be able to make efficiencies in those areas rather than in staffing areas. There is also a challenge around, and this affects primary sector more than secondary. We are seeing a falling birth rate as a country, which does present challenges in terms of how we manage that process, but does also mean that we have, particularly in London, but will be more acutely felt fairly soon elsewhere. That does present some difficult challenges about how we make best use of the school estate. It's why part of the reason we're thinking more about what we can do around SEND, more provision, using that space, and I've seen some good examples of SEND units, resource space being opened up in schools where they might have gone from a 2-form entry to a 1-form, but also alongside that, our school-based nursery programme, again using the space to create high-quality early education for children. But I do appreciate the difficulties that colleagues are facing. We are investing more. This has been a big priority for the government. But it's also why we need to get more growth in our economy so that the Chancellor has easier choices to make around investment in public services.
Yes, so thank you for that. You mentioned child poverty, and I know that you have said that ending child poverty is the moral mission of this government, and indeed a moral mission I think that spurs you on to make good decisions around eradicating child poverty. And we know that the report of the Child Poverty Task Force is imminent. What do you see as the role of schools in supporting this moral mission?
Schools have got an important role to play, but my worry is that I hear that it's the levels of child poverty we see in our country are putting unsustainable pressure on too many of our teachers and leaders. That you're all having to do things that it's wonderful you do it. You washing clothes, providing food and support for families, helping families who are living in temporary accommodation. You do that because it's the right thing to do, and I thank you for it. But we shouldn't be in this position as a country, and that's where government has a responsibility to act. It's why I'm so proud that we are expanding free school meals to 500,000 more children from next year. It's also why we're introducing breakfast clubs. It's also why we're investing in 30 hours of government-funded childcare so that parents are able to get to work, to manage work and family life, and actually work more hours if they're able to do that. And that's £9 billion of investment next year. But there is much more that we need to do on child poverty. I'm leading that work across government. I feel it very strongly. I feel it deeply and personally, having grown up, knowing what it's like to be in that situation. And for our children, it's the sense of hopelessness and powerlessness that it brings. I know for you, it's the extra pressure and the work that it creates. But actually, for all of us as a country, the moral stain that comes of 4.5 million of our children growing up having a really hard time of it, and how that narrows their horizons, how it damages us all. And I am determined that this government will take serious action on tackling child poverty. It will be the moral mission of this government. But I also hope that in so doing, it allows you to spend more time focusing on what you came into teaching to do, which is a brilliant education in every classroom. I applaud you for the support you're delivering and the help you're providing for families. But we've got to do better as a country.
So I'm delighted to hear you say that, because I think it can be too easy for governments to think that the solutions all lie in schools. And I think it really is only the government in relation to child poverty that can pull the big levers of state that lifts children out of poverty. So it's very reassuring that you see that as part of the work of government. So I think we've got time for one more question. At our conference last year, we talked about the curriculum assessment review, and we are delighted that Professor Becky Francis is chairing it, with such a brilliant expert group around her, and we will hear her speak tomorrow. A year in, we are expecting the final report imminently. What do you want the review to mean for our schooling system in England?
Becky and the panel have done a fantastic job, and I'm looking forward to the full report being published. It will set the direction for our schools for the next decade and more. It will demonstrate our commitment to high academic standards, all children getting a firm foundation, but also the breadth that our children need to experience through the school system too. They've identified what's working well, where there are areas for improvement and for change, and I'm really excited about what that will mean for the whole system, for the sector, but also for improving standards and life chances for our children. And Becky and the team have done a fantastic job, and together with the school's white paper that we'll be publishing, I think both together will set a clear direction for the next decade for our schools. We'll give you a clear sense of what this government is seeking to achieve, but also the focus, as I said in my speech, on making sure that the school system is delivering better for children who I believe have been not well served by the current arrangements. Children with SEND, white working class kids, and those two taken together will be complementary.
This is an important term for us. So we're getting a skills white paper, we're getting a schools white paper, a curriculum and assessment review, the Child Poverty Task Force report. It's a big policy moment, and it's a big opportunity, I think, for us to tell the story of the schooling system we want to create. So, Secretary of State, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We are delighted. Could we give the Secretary of State?
Thank you very much.
Okay, colleagues, so we're moving now to, I think, a very well-deserved refreshment break. We'll reconvene in the auditorium at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Between then and now, we've got our brilliant workshop programme, and we have lunch. So enjoy your refreshment break, and see you shortly.